Good morning, students. Good morning to all. Last day we have studied about the facilities offered by International Monetary Funds. The International Monetary Fund has created several new credit facilities for its members nations. Some of among the facilities are basic credit facilities and extended fund facilities, compensatory finance facilities, buffer stock facilities, and supplementary financing facilities. So today also we will just remind what we have studied on last day and we will go to the next concept. Last day we have studied about the some of the facilities offered by international monetary funds. So the basic credit facilities and compensatory financing facilities, extended fund facilities and buffer stock facilities and the structural adjustment facilities. Today just we will study about the achievements of international monetary funds. What are the achievements are achieved by the international monetary funds? First, the one of the achievement in international monetary fund is establishment of monetary reserve fund. The international monetary fund has played a major role in achieving the seizable stock of the national currencies of different countries. The international monetary fund has the abundantly different value currencies, different nations currencies. So all the nations involved in this international trades must be needing the different type of the currencies. But all the nations are not have the possibilities to have all the nations currencies. But on behalf of the all other nations, the international monetary funds gathering the all nations currencies and it will be provided to all other nations, those who all needed in these foreign currencies. To meet the foreign exchange requirements of the member nations, International Monetary Fund uses its stocks to help the member nations to meet foreign exchange requirements. So all the nations must be in need of having some of the amount of foreign currencies. But in the time, the international monetary funds only will be provided to their member nations. Next, monetary disciplines and cooperations. The International Monetary Fund has shown keen interest in maintaining monetary discipline and cooperations among the member countries. So all the nations, whether if it is need or not, sometimes the nations may be as a cooperative, otherwise it is no needed to maintaining the cooperations. But even though the international monetary funds also maintaining or making the cooperations among the nations countries, because all the nations also have to dealing with the international monetary fund, otherwise all the nations must be depending with the international monetary fund. When the situation is being like that, all the nations have to be as a cooperations with the international monetary funds. To achieve this objective, it has provided assistance only to those countries which make sincere efforts to solve their problems. But the international monetary funds always expect to their member nations. Those who nations are taking some of the effort to make the solves or bringing the solves to maintain the problems. Those nations only will having some of the benefit. Other thing, the international monetary funds will not giving some of the beneficiaries. Next is special interest in the problem of underdeveloping countries. The notable success of the fund is the maintenance of special interest in the acute problem of developing countries. Because in this developing countries only will have some of the little bit of the problem to having some of the financials. If the developing countries has some of the sufficient level of the financing facilities, it will become as a developed nations. But the insufficiency of the financial facilities, it cannot doing like that. So only the international monetary funds focusing on the developing nations to improving or the becoming as a developed nations. So the International Monetary Fund has provided financial assistance to solve the balance of payment problems to the underdeveloping countries. And another one of the important problem in these underdeveloping countries is unable to maintaining the balance of payment. So whenever the developing countries are unable to maintaining the balance of payment, the international monetary funds providing the financial assistance to their member nations and mostly the underdeveloping nations and the developing nations. However, the many underdeveloping countries continue to be the underdeveloping countries, while the developed countries have achieved substantial growth. So normally the developed nations also having the most beneficiary or most appropriate chance and possibilities to gathering the fund from the International Monetary Fund. Next, India and the International Monetary Fund. We have to know one thing. Till 1970, India stood fifth in the fund and it had the power to appointing the permanent executive director. So all the member nations did not have this power to maintaining or appointing the permanent executive director in the International Monetary Fund. But India got the power to appointing the permanent executive director in the International Monetary Fund. The India has been one of the major beneficiary of the fund assistance. So many of the nations can have the power and possibilities to deriving the money from the International Monetary Fund. Among these all the nations, India also has one of the nations to borrowing the money from the International Monetary Fund. It has been getting aids from the various fund agencies from time to time and has been regularly repaying in the debt. The International Monetary Fund always will be as the favorite one to their member nations for those who all have the power and interest and desire to repay the fund to the International Monetary Fund. In these situations, the India has the power and India got the responsibility to the repay to the International Monetary Fund. The India's current quota in the International Monetary Fund is that means the special drawing rights. Not only that, besides the receiving loans to meet deficit in the balance of payments, India has benefited in certain other respect from the membership of the fund. So the membership fund also will be allotted from the International Monetary Fund. So India has the power and some of the special drawing rights from the International Monetary Funds. Next, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So shortly we will called as a International Bank of Rural Reconstruction and Development as a IBRD, otherwise World Bank. The International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, otherwise called as the World Bank, was established in 1945 under the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944. As we have studied already, this World Bank or the IBRD was established in 1945 on the basis of the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944. The purpose is to bring about the smooth transaction from the wartime to peacetime economy. It is known as sister institutions along with the International Monetary Fund. The membership in International Monetary Fund is a prerequisite to become a member of IBRD. The Integrated International Bank for Reconstruction and Development financial assistance to member countries. and some of the objectives of IBRD, otherwise the objectives of World Bank. So one of the objectives of World Bank is reconstruction and development. So what are the nations want to begin or we want to reconstruct and develop their economy? The IBRD will provide many financial facilities. Some of the nations must be in the need of reconstruct their infrastructures and development without having any of the efforts or unable to maintaining their reconstructions. The IBRD will be providing the financial assistance. Next, encouragement to capital investment. We already know about the contributions of capital investment as per there. So all the nations also will be in the need of capital investments. But most of the developing nations and underdeveloping countries also will not be able to maintaining or increasing their capital investment. But in these situations, the World Bank also will be helpful to the most of the nations to encouraging their capital investment. Next, encouragement to international trade. So for the purpose of maintaining or continuing their international trade, the World Bank also will be helpful to them. Most of the nations are will be unable to maintaining their international trade because of unfavorable trade and unfavorable payment. But in these situations, the IBRD also observe their situations and will be helpful to their nations. Next, establishment of peacetime economy. So we have to maintaining the peacetime economy. Peacetime economy, we will never predict about the international trade. Without having any of the problem, our economy will going as smoothly. But we will never predict how it will be going on. But even though the IBRD also making the situation to establishment the peacetime economy. Next, environmental protections. So even if our industrial sectors are going to increase abundantly, we have to be in the need of protecting our environmental. If we are missing to protecting our environmental situations, we have to face in future problem from the environmental. So the IBRD also provided some of the helpful to the member nations to protecting their environment. And not only that, some of the other objectives also having by the World Bank. So what are the other objectives or means? The IBRD, that means the World Bank, to help the member countries for economic reconstruction and development, and to stimulate the long run capital investment for restoring balance of payment equilibrium and thereby ensure balanced development of international trade among the member nations. When we are maintaining the balanced payment in their membership country only is enough, they will bring their own it. Next, to provide guarantees for loans meant for infrastructural and industrial projects of member nations. So even though if you are maintaining all the infrastructure facilities, the industrial projects, the maintaining to the industrial project for the membership nation is important. So the IBRD, that means the World Bank also will be provided to their member nations for maintaining their industrial projects. Next, to helpful to war ravaged economies. International Monetary Fund also will be helpful to war ravaged economies to transform into peace economies. Next, it will be supplement foreign private investment by direct loans out of its own funds for productive purposes. Okay, students, next we will study about the World Bank's lending procedures. In what procedures the World Bank will be lending their financial facilities for their member nations. First one of the method to providing the advances loans to their member is loans out of its own fund. The World Bank also will have their own fund and it will be providing from their own fund. And it will be providing the loans out of borrowed capital. So the International Monetary Fund also will be borrowed the capital from their member nations. Borrowed mean it may be the some of the other ways. And loans through banks guarantees. By the way of providing the banks guarantees, it will be providing the loans facilities to their member nations. The World Bank has changed its development loan strategy and lays more emphasis on financing schemes which directly influence the well-being of poor masses of the member countries, especially the developing countries. The amount of agricultural loans has increased more rapidly than in any other sector. So normally when we are comparing to the other sectors, the IBRD only will be focusing on the primary sectors. That means the agricultural sectors. Because the world nations or the International Monetary Fund also have accepted the importance of the developing in the primary sectors. So the amount of agricultural loans has increased more rapidly than any other sectors. The bank, the World Bank, now also takes interest in the activities of the development of rural areas, such as spread of education of the rural peoples. So it will be borrowing, it will be providing many financial assistance to providing the educations among the rural people, because the rural people only will be in the need of having the more educational facilities when we are comparing to the urbanized peoples. Next, development of roads in rural areas, because most of the raw materials are coming from the industrial sectors, coming from the primary sectors to the international industrial sectors. But even though some of the International Monetary Fund, sorry, the foreign direct investment, the foreign direct investment weren't to maintaining in the rural areas, but the rural areas are not having the sufficient level of the infrastructure facilities. For absorbing the foreign direct investment, the India or the International Monetary Fund, sorry, the World Bank also focusing to absorbing the International Monetary Fund. Because of that, it will be focusing the infrastructure facilities in rural development. Next, electrification of the villages, because most of the villages still the date they will never have the electricity facilities in their rural facility. So the world banks always are also focusing on the electricity facilities providing to the villages peoples. Next, the functions of International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. The investment for productive purposes. So many functions are there by the World Bank. Some of the important functions have to be analyzed by the following sentences. The World Bank performs the major role of providing loans for development works to member countries, especially to the underdeveloped countries. The World Bank provides long-term loans for various development projects. As per their projects, so the functions of IBRD. The first one is investment for productive purposes.